Hello, welcome back to the Emotional Regulation and Intimate Communication series with me, Erin. So I just want to say we've had such a huge response to the last 4 episodes that I've done on emotional regulation and intimate communications that I decided to continue this series and add 4 new episodes. So this next month, we'll be diving deeper in. I'll be offering podcasts on troubleshooting, and I'll be getting into a little bit more specific application. So I hope that you're enjoying. And just a quick notice that we have an India immersion workshop at Thrive. If you're listening to this in your local, it is September 14th from 12:30 to 2:30. It includes Indian lunch. You get a henna tattoo, sacred storytelling, yoga, breath work, and some little touch of martial arts. So if you're interested in the sacred movement arts of India, come check that out. I'm super excited to present because I've been studying sacred movement arts for most of my life. So today's topic for the podcast is cover up emotions. So when I coach people and I ask them how they feel, many times they have to first tune in so they can actually know what they're feeling. Now, the podcast that I recorded right before this one about tuning in addresses that, like how to become aware of subtle energies and subtle emotions that you're having within your body that you might have tuned out. For example, if I said, okay, what do your clothes feel like on your skin? Oh, well, most of the time, maybe I'm wearing clothes, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm nudist, but then you would notice like the feeling of your hair on your head or on your shoulders. You would notice the feeling of your clothes on your skin, like how that feels with your yoga pants hugging around your hips or your yoga scarf draped around your shoulders. And it would bring awareness to those more subtle sensory nerve endings towards the surface of your skin. When you tune into that helps you to calm the mind and enhance feeling, which is part of the work that I do. Is I help people to get back in touch with their emotions and learn how to process them and then learn how to communicate their needs, so on and so forth. But it certainly starts with tuning in. But then the next issue that I find with clients is they have what I call cover up emotions. So what is this? Cover up emotions are emotions that are like boredom, procrastination, and even something like overwhelm. And let me explain. Now, these are valid, that if you're feeling overwhelmed in your body, that's certainly valid. I would want to argue with you that, no, you're not feeling overwhelmed. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. So, but what I'm saying is, every single time I've coached somebody on these particular emotions or emotional qualifiers is there's some other deeper emotion that's underneath it. Same thing with anger, for example, underneath that is typically fear, some kind of fear, and that's causing us to lash out. These cover-up emotions, though, that we have to work through first to get to other emotions, a lot of the times, for example, procrastination and boredom is because you are disconnected from yourself. So think about why you would procrastinate. Well, let's say I had full intentions of doing my taxes. By the way, I got them done. But I was procrastinating. And when I used my coaching tools on myself, because I try to walk my walk, not perfect, but I try, I realized that in my head, I thought I should be doing something else. Anything else except for doing my taxes, going for a walk, exercising, doing something relating to my podcast or coach course or anything except for doing my taxes, really, eating a snack, all these things. So when we think that we should be doing something else, what happens is a disconnect between the mind and the body. I see it all the time when people are practicing asana. They have a lot going on in their mind, and then their mind hooks onto something, and all of a sudden they're looking around the room, they're looking at the clock, they're sort of taken out of the moment because they're not being present with the emotions that they're feeling inside of their body in that moment. So being able to connect to your body and be able to bring the mind and the body back online and recognize when you think you should be doing something different and ask yourself why. Why should I think that I should be doing something different? If you ask yourself that question, you might become aware that because this is uncomfortable and I don't like it. That's usually my answer when I think of doing something like my taxes. It's uncomfortable. I'll have thoughts like, I'm not good with numbers. That will make me feel insecure. I don't like the feeling of being insecure. And so then the action that I will take, I'm following the clear formula. The action that I would take is to run away from it, distract myself with something else. The results are, I'm not good at these numbers. I'm not good at taxes. I'm not doing them. So that's an example of procrastination. Procrastination is almost always you think you should be doing something different, or you think that you're not good at the thing that you're doing, and so you disconnect from it, rather than getting curious. And when I coach people, one of the main states that we conjure up is curiosity. Because when you're curious, then it just becomes a game. You go inward and you're breathing. I like to imagine deep sea diving and just that sound of your breath, when you're wearing a scuba mask or a snorkel mask, and all you can hear is your breath, and you feel the water on your skin, and you're just in that space of observing. If we can drop into that space when we're experiencing our emotions, it allows us to process them, which is the whole point of this series of podcasts, is different ways, different things that I can say that you can activate within your body to draw in and allow yourself to touch those spaces within you that you've been resisting and avoiding, so that you can process them, and then that energy can flush out, and then you can move forward with your life. If by resisting something and overthinking it, it's taking up a huge amount of mental space in your head, you have to realize that and just recognize, okay, this is taking up 30% of my brain power. Like, that's a high number, but sometimes people have told me 70 or 80%. That is obsessive thinking. If you're only thinking about, something like, oh, this person said this, I don't know what they mean by that. Oh, they hate me. Just as an example, like, you could be focusing your mind on so many other things. Rather, you're kind of destroying your self-esteem by making assumptions about what this person said. And that's just a small example, but we can do it with so many things. So when we regain the ability, reactivate the ability that we have within us to process our emotions, we find freedom. When you find freedom, then creativity can reactivate and you can be happier, more peaceful. You don't have to work so hard just to show up in your life. Certainly using the tools, but you got to choose your hard, right? So things being hard when you feel like you're out of control and your nervous system is jazzed and your heart's beating out of your chest, that is much harder, I think, than I don't want to do it, like some resistance, but then choosing to use the tools, being a little unsure and insecure, but trying anyway and finding your way through it. So if you think of anything that you have tried and you've gained some proficiency in, that is how it is. Even if you have a teacher, you have to have that trust and faith in yourself, and certainly in your teacher and your guidance, that you can do it. And you have to try to apply the tools. So these cover-up emotions are important to recognize, because if you are, let's say, overwhelm is a huge one. When I initially coach people and they let's say they have no concept in any of these coaching tools, they feel overwhelmed, I'll use tools, for example, some alternate nostril breathing or Brahmari breath, which is bumblebee breath, where you plug both ears and hum, just to like draw them back down into their body, and then start questioning and asking different things to kind of like let go of like so many frantic thoughts, and then drop in their body. And then a lot of times they'll say things like, I'm sad, or I'm grieving, or I'm frustrated. So if we didn't acknowledge that, okay, there's a cover-up emotion that we need to get through real quick, and then we can get to the real meat and potatoes, then we're just going to be stuck in that overwhelm. So that's why I'm addressing this in the podcast, because I have seen it so many times in my coaching practice. So if you find yourself procrastinating, bored, overwhelmed, these are just 3 examples. There's other examples of these emotions. Like I said, anger, like rage. That one is, it's like a tornado. Certainly underneath that is some kind of terror. So with the intensity of anger, like rage is more intense than just anger itself. I'm frustrated. Then the intensity of the fear would be higher. Terror. I'm so frightened, like some kind of trauma. So connecting to yourself by listening to the podcast about tuning in. I have quite a few meditations on Insight Timer, and I'm not the only one that does this, but if you're listening to my podcast and you resonate with my voice and you know that I know my stuff, then, listening to some of my stuff and furthering along with the tools that I present might be a good idea, at least temporarily. Or heck, I've had people that have listened to this podcast for years. In fact, I had a person recently who's wanted to work with me since 2012. It's 2024, so and I finally get to meet her next week. So I hope that this podcast helps you out a little bit to recognize, okay, this is an overwhelmed emotion. This is a cover-up emotion that I can work through. And then underneath, there's probably going to be another layer. And then maybe I can use a clear formula, which I've done some great podcasts on that so much. It's in both of my books. It's an amazing formula that you can use to solve any problem that you have. So both of my books are available on Amazon. It is Thriving After Addiction was my first book. And then the second book is Journey Through the Dark to Find Light, which has a cool picture of my arm tattoo on there. And I actually designed the cover on the second book. So yeah, thank you so much for stopping by, and namaste.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast and if it's helping you, please consider writing a review. You can go to iTunes or Google Play, go into the search bar and type in Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, scroll down, and you can leave a review. This helps other people to find me as well as bumps us up in the search ratings. Also, this podcast is sponsor-free, so that means we don't receive anything for doing it. If you feel so inclined and this podcast is helping to support you and you want to return the favor and help to support any production costs of the podcast, feel free to give a donation to a Venmo link, Thrive Yoga Fit, or PayPal, Erin@erincoach.com. If you don't have the means, don't worry about it. We're not going anywhere. You're all good. But if you would like to give back, you can give back in those ways. Last thing, we have a coaching certification coming up, and it's 7 days of an intensive work, followed by a 3-month mentorship. You will not find another teacher that's more passionate and dedicated than I am to my students and their learning, and not just their learning, but the application and how they show up in their life. If you've been listening to this podcast and it's had a huge impact on your life, just imagine what it would be like to spend 7 intensive days with me and then a 3-month mentorship. You can check that out at thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Again, thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Thank you so much. Namaste.